Imagine this. You're at a dinner party sitting across from a guy who seems to have it all. He's got a mansion, luxury cars, a yacht, and yet he's talking about how he needs more. More money, more deals, more power. You ask, what for? He shrugs. Just because. That's greed in action, not survival, not ambition, just the never-ending hunger for more. Now let's take it up a notch. Think of Bernie Madoff, the Wall Street fraudster who scammed investors out of $65 billion. He wasn't struggling. He wasn't poor. He was already rich beyond imagination. But it wasn't enough. His greed ruined thousands of lives. Families lost savings, retirees went broke, charities collapsed. Or take a look at corporate America. Have you ever noticed that even when a company makes billions in profit, they still cut costs by laying off workers? CEOs walk away with multi-million-dollar bonuses while employees scramble for severance pay. It's not business, it's greed. And it's not just the rich. Greed shows up everywhere. Ever had a friend who took credit for your work? A boss who squeezed every last drop out of you without a raise? Ever seen someone fight over the last parking spot? Not because they need it, but just so someone else doesn't get it? That's the ugly side of human nature. Most people think greed is about cash, but it goes deeper. It's about power, control, and status. It's the politician who refuses to step down, like even when they've done enough damage. The billionaire who hoards wealth while thousands starve. The everyday person who stockpiles food during a crisis, leaving others with nothing. Greed isn't just about wanting more. It's about wanting more at someone else's expense. And here's the scary part. It never stops. A kid fights over a toy, even if they already have 10. A millionaire keeps chasing money, even if they can't spend it all in 100 lifetimes. Why? Because greed isn't about having, it's about winning. And when greed takes over, it doesn't just hurt the person who's greedy. It destroys families, friendships, businesses, economies, even entire civilizations. So why does it happen? And more importantly, how do we stop it? That's what we're about to unpack. All right, let's strip it down. What exactly is greed? Most people picture a cartoon villain sitting on a pile of gold, cackling. But greed isn't always that obvious. It's not just about money. It's about always wanting more. More than you need, more than you can use, and more than others. Greed isn't survival. It's not ambition. It's excess. Let's make it real. How greed starts young. Ever watched kids fight over a toy? A toddler could be playing with something else, totally happy. But the second they see another kid pick up a toy, they need that one. They don't care if they have 10 others. They don't care if they didn't even want it before. They just don't want someone else to have it. Sound familiar? Now, let's scale that up. The adult version of toy hoarding. A CEO lays off hundreds of workers, not because the company is struggling, but because profits must go up. A landlord raises rent to sky-high levels, even if it forces families onto the street. A politician stays in power for decades, not because they're needed, but because they refuse to let go. Same mindset, bigger consequences. It's not about having enough, it's about having more than others. Greed versus ambition. What's the difference? Some might say, but isn't ambition a good thing? Yes. Ambition is working hard to build something great. Greed is taking more than your fair share, even if it hurts others. Ambition. A baker works overtime to grow their business. Greed. A mega corporation buys out every bakery in town and raises prices because they can. See the difference? One builds, the other hoards. Why do humans get greedy? There's a reason we're wired this way. Long ago, survival meant grabbing as much as you could. Food, land, resources. Those who took more lived longer. The ones who shared? Not so much. Fast forward to today, and that instinct is still in us. But now we're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting for more, even when we don't need it. And when greed takes over, it can ruin friendships, families, businesses, even entire countries. Now that we get what greed is, let's look at how it wrecks lives. Now that we know what greed is, let's talk about the damage it does. Greed isn't just some personal flaw, it spreads like wildfire. It ruins friendships, poisons workplaces, and even brings down entire countries. Let's break it down. Greed in personal relationships. Ever had a friend who only calls when they need something? Or a family member who takes and takes but never gives back? That's greed. Greedy people see others as tools, not as real people with feelings. They'll step on anyone to get ahead. They destroy lifelong relationships over things. Example, the friend who always wants more. Say you've got a friend who never picks up the tab. You go out, they forget their wallet. You help them move, they don't even say thanks. They always take, but never give. At first, you let it slide, but over time, it wears you down. You start resenting them. The friendship fades. That's how greed kills relationships. Slowly, one selfish act at a time. Example, family greed over money. Money brings out the worst in people, especially in families. Ever seen siblings fight over an inheritance? Greed turns loved ones into enemies, ready to cut each other out for an extra slice of the pie? And for what? A bigger bank account? A house? A car? Greed in the workplace. Now, let's talk about where most people see greed every day, at work. Ever had a boss who piles work on you but won't give you a raise? A company that keeps profits high by cutting jobs? A coworker who takes credit for your ideas? That's greed in action. Example, the greedy boss. Let's say your company makes record profits this year. You worked extra hours, sacrificed weekends, gave it your all. What does the CEO do? Layoffs to cut costs. No raises, no bonuses. But guess what? They get $1 million bonus. That's not business. That's greed at the top. And it's not just about money. Some bosses hoard power like a dragon hoards gold. They refuse to promote you because they don't want to share success. They keep you down so they stay on top. Toxic, but way too common. Greed in society. Now let's zoom out. When greed spreads beyond workplaces and relationships, it wrecks entire communities. The housing crisis? Investors buy up homes, jack up prices, and leave families struggling to afford rent. Environmental destruction? Companies cut down forests, pollute rivers, and dump toxic waste, all to boost profits. Corrupt politicians? They take bribes, rig systems, and make decisions that help the rich but crush the poor. Example, the billionaire who won't stop. There are people in the world worth hundreds of billions of dollars. They could solve hunger, pay fair wages, or improve communities without losing a dime of their luxury. Do they? Nope. They push for lower wages, fewer benefits, and bigger profits. All while their workers struggle to pay rent. And here's the craziest part, they'll never spend all their money, even if they tried. Yet they still want more. That's what happens when greed takes over. It stops being about need and turns into power and control. Greed isn't just a personal flaw, it spreads. It destroys friendships. It poisons workplaces. It ruins entire societies. And the worst part? It never stops until someone pushes back. So why do some people never feel satisfied, no matter how much they have? That's what we'll break down next. You ever wonder why some people keep chasing more, even when they already have everything? A billionaire still wants more money. A CEO still wants more power. A guy with 10 cars still wants the latest model. Why? Why do some people never feel full, no matter how much they take? Turns out greed isn't just a choice. It's wired into us. Our brains run on dopamine, the feel-good chemical. It's what gives you a rush when you win a game, eat your favorite food, or get a promotion. And guess what? Money, power, and status trigger dopamine too. Every time a greedy person gets more, their brain rewards them. A billionaire makes another million? Dopamine hit. A CEO gets promoted? Dopamine hit. A social climber gets more followers? Dopamine hit. But here's the problem. Dopamine doesn't last. It fades fast. So what do greedy people do? They chase the next high. They think, if I just get a little more, I'll finally feel satisfied. But they never do. Because greed is a treadmill. You run and run, but you never arrive. Some people are greedy because deep down they're scared. They believe there's never enough, so they hoard everything they can. The boss who underpays employees, they think paying fair wages means losing money. The rich investor who won't donate, they believe charity makes them weaker. The guy who stockpiles food during a crisis, he's afraid there won't be any left. Even when they have plenty, they act like they don't. It's a survival instinct left over from ancient times. Back then, if you didn't grab food when you could, you might starve. But now, the richest people on Earth still act like they're one step from losing everything. It's fear disguised as greed. For some, money isn't even the real goal. Power is. Some CEOs don't just want profits, they want total control over their industry. Some politicians don't just want votes, they want to rule forever. Some social climbers don't just want followers, they want influence. Power makes people feel invincible. They start believing the rules don't apply to them, that they deserve special treatment. And here's the worst part. The more power someone has, the less empathy they feel. Studies show that when people gain power, they stop caring about others. They stop seeing people as equals and start seeing them as tools. That's why greedy people never stop. It's not about having more, it's about being untouchable. Not everyone falls for greed. Some of the richest, most powerful people give back. They donate, they build, they help others succeed. So what makes them different? They found real satisfaction. Instead of chasing money, they chase meaning. Instead of hoarding, they share. Instead of taking, they build something bigger than themselves. Because here's the truth. Greed never leads to happiness, but purpose, generosity, and real human connection do. Greedy people aren't just selfish, they're trapped. Their brains keep them chasing the next hit. Their fear makes them hoard instead of share. Their hunger for power makes them forget about others. And the sad part? They'll never feel full. So the real question is, how do we break free from greed? That's what we'll tackle next. Is greed controlling you? It's easy to point at billionaires, corrupt politicians, or power-hungry CEOs and say, they're the problem. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Greed isn't just out there, it's in all of us. Maybe you're not hoarding billions or firing employees for profit, but have you ever taken credit for something you didn't fully earn? Held onto money or resources even when someone else needed them more? Wanted to win, not because you needed to, but just so someone else wouldn't. Greed isn't always about money. It's about the fear of not having enough. And that fear, it makes people act in ways they don't even realize. Ever told yourself, I'll be happy when I get a raise? When I buy a bigger house? When I finally get that promotion? Then you get it, and the feeling doesn't last, so you move the goalpost. Okay, I just need a little more. That's the trap. Greed doesn't scream. It whispers. It makes you believe happiness is always just one step away, but never here. Think about your own life. Are you always chasing more? Do you ever stop to ask why? Greedy people don't just hurt themselves. They hurt everyone around them. The parent who works 24/7 for money but never spends time with their kids. The boss who overworks employees while pocketing bonuses. The person who holds on to everything, never sharing, never giving back. And the worst part? Greed never delivers what it promises. It makes people lonely, paranoid, always watching their back. Because when you take from others, you start to wonder, is someone coming to take from me? If you feel like greed has a grip on you, good news, you can break free. It starts with a simple shift. Stop focusing on more. Start focusing on enough. Ask yourself, what do I actually need to live a good life? What do I already have that I don't appreciate enough? When was the last time I gave without expecting something back? Greed feeds on fear, the fear that we'll never have enough. But gratitude? That's the antidote. The moment you stop chasing what's next and start appreciating what's here, greed loses its grip. At the end of your life, no one will care how much you owned. They'll care about how you treated people, what you built, what you gave back. So the real question isn't how much more can I get? It's what do I actually need to live a good life? And who can I help along the way? Because when you let go of greed, you gain something far more valuable: peace. All right, we've seen how greed takes over, ruins relationships, and keeps people stuck in a cycle of never-ending want. So now, let's get real. How do you stop it? Greed isn't something you turn off. It's wired into us, but just like any bad habit, you can control it. You can train yourself to stop chasing more and start appreciating enough. Here's how. Greed feeds on the feeling that you don't have enough. Gratitude kills that feeling. Try this. Every morning, write down 3 things you're thankful for. Not big things, just everyday stuff. Notice what you already have instead of what's missing. Before making a new purchase, ask yourself, do I actually need this? Or am I just chasing a high? The more you train your brain to focus on what you have, the less power greed has over you. The problem with greedy people? They don't have a finish line. They keep moving the goalpost. So here's a challenge. Define your enough. How much money do you actually need to live comfortably? How much success is enough before you can slow down and enjoy life? How much time with loved ones do you need before work takes over? When you set limits, you stop the cycle of just one more and start enjoying what's in front of you. Greedy people hoard. Generous people share. And here's the weird part. The more you give, the richer you feel. Buy an extra coffee for a stranger. Donate something valuable, not just leftovers. Give your time. Help someone with no expectation of getting anything in return. At first, it might feel unnatural, but over time you realize something powerful. Giving feels better than taking. Stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison is fuel for greed. Someone else has a nicer car. A coworker makes more money. A friend's house is bigger, and suddenly what you have doesn't feel like enough anymore. But here's the thing, there will always be someone with more. So ask yourself, are you chasing your own dreams or just trying to keep up with someone else's life? When you focus on your own path, greed loses its grip. Find purpose beyond money and status. People who are obsessed with wealth and power, they have nothing else. That's why they keep chasing it. But when you build a life that's about more than just getting, greed fades. Try this. Find a hobby you love. Spend time with people who make you happy. Do something that helps others. Volunteer, mentor, create something meaningful. When you have a deeper purpose, you don't need greed to feel fulfilled. Check yourself. Are you acting out of greed? Last but not least, self-awareness. Before making a decision, ask, am I taking more than I need? Is this choice hurting someone else? Am I doing this because I actually need it or just because I want to win? If the answer points to greed, pause, rethink it. Greedy choices don't just hurt others, they hurt you too. Here's the truth. The happiest people aren't the ones who have the most. They're the ones who know what enough looks like. Appreciate what they already have. Give more than they take. Because when you stop chasing more, you gain something way better: peace, freedom, and real happiness. So the real question is, are you ready to let go of greed and start living? What do you really want? Let's be real. Nobody thinks they're greedy. We all believe greed is someone else's problem, the billionaires, the corrupt politicians, the ruthless CEOs. But if we're honest, greed sneaks into our own lives too. Maybe it's wanting credit for something we didn't fully earn. Maybe it's taking more than we need just because we can. Maybe it's chasing more and more without ever stopping to ask, what am I really looking for? Greed isn't about money. It's about fear. The fear of not having enough. The fear of falling behind. The fear of not being important. That's why people hoard wealth, power, and success, because they think more will finally make them feel safe, respected, or happy. But here's the truth. Greed never delivers what it promises. It tells you happiness is just one more step away. But the finish line keeps moving. You never arrive. So, what's the alternative? If greed doesn't make people happy, what does? Gratitude. Appreciating what you already have. Generosity. Giving without expecting anything back. Enoughness. Knowing when to stop chasing and start living. Because the people who truly win in life aren't the ones who take the most. They're the ones who build things that last, lift others up instead of stepping on them, go to bed at night knowing they made a difference, not just a profit. A challenge for you. So here's the question. Are you chasing something that won't actually make you happy? Are you letting greed pull you away from what really matters? Are you ready to stop running on the treadmill of more and start living with enough? Because at the end of the day, what's the point of having everything if you never feel satisfied? Greed tricks people into thinking they need more, more, more. But happiness, it comes from less. Less chasing, less hoarding, less fear, and more of the things that actually matter. Connection, purpose, and peace. The choice is yours. What do you want your life to be about?